Hello and welcome to episode 72 of Around the Lens, your live weekly visual journalism roundtable show coming at you every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. I am not joined this week by Zach Roberts. Hopefully he'll come on later. He is out shooting the Mayday protests. Did not realize today was such a huge day for protests. Otherwise, I may have rescheduled the show. But anyways, we've got a great show for you tonight. If you are interested in following the show on social media, you can find us on Facebook at Around the Lens Podcast, on Instagram at Around the Lens, and on Twitter at Around Lens. Our guest tonight is Aaron Cynic, returning panelist. Aaron, tell us a little about yourself and what you're up to.
Hello, yes. So my name's Aaron Cynic. I shoot and write for freelance for a lot of different places, but mainly I'm a regular contributor to Chicagoist.com, which is part of the Gothamist network. I've been doing this for almost more years than I can remember, and I literally just got back from covering the Mayday marches here in Chicago.
Oh, great. What was that like?
It was long. There were, despite rain and wind, and Chicago's notorious for the weather turning on a dime. Despite that, there were still thousands of people that made it out. They had smaller rallies and at a lot of different locations throughout the city, which all then converged in Union Park, which is on the west side, and then they all went straight downtown. But it was a good day, despite it pouring out, at least at some points. But it's a long day. I mean, my little step counter says I've done about 10 miles. So
wow,
my back's kind of yelling at me at the moment, but no worse for the wear. It's all part of the job.
What are you shooting with?
So I shoot with a Nikon D700 and a 3200 and a D70. I juggle all three plus a cell phone, and every now and again I'll borrow I'll borrow a GoPro or two from folks I know, but mainly it's the 700, the 3200, and the 70.
Yeah. You mentioned your back hurting. Have you ever thought about switching to like another camera system, like Micro Four Thirds or something else?
Every now and again I'll think about that, right? Or I'll think about like, what else can I do? But the way that I look at it is I've been shooting with this gear for so long that it's just, it's almost an extension of me, if that makes sense. That you get what you got, what you know the gear you've got, exactly all of its quirks, all of its little, because most of the gear that I have was previously owned or used in some way. And so you get used to the, little ticks here and there that it has. But also it's a cost thing too, right? I mean, it's a matter of like, okay, if I'm going to go with a new system, or I'm going to even just, get like one new body and a couple of lenses to go with it, that's a significant investment. And that's just not one I can afford at the moment. So that's kind of what it comes down to, really.
Yeah, I'm totally there with you. I mean, I was super duper familiar with my my Canon kit. I had that kit up for almost 8 years or something, and so I would love my Canon kit. But when I started, I got a Micro Four Thirds camera, really just for the video. I wanted to shoot something with 4K video. That's it. So I bought the 4 Thirds camera with like not a rinky dink lens. It was an official Panasonic lens, but it wasn't like super high end glass like I have now. And it was really just so I could shoot 4K video. And then I started to use it more and more for photos. And I started to realize that the quality difference wasn't that big a deal. And so then I was like, well, I can keep on trying to make the 4K or trying to make the Canon system work when, again, I wasn't happy with the 4K from the 5D Mark IV. Or I can try and go whole hog into the Micro Four Thirds realm and see what that gets me. And that's kind of where I made that decision to switch. And, going back to the thing you said about cost, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a lot of cash to lay down. It was $2,000 for the GH5, another $2,000 for some of the high-end lenses. And that's why I sold all my camera gear, And, you're not going to get the same amount you paid for it. Absolutely not. I probably got maybe a quarter of what I paid for it. And in the end of the day, but at the end of the day, the system, the 4 Thirds system was that much cheaper that I could afford. I mean, my entire kit for the 4 Thirds system is probably the price of maybe the Canon 5D Mark II I initially paid for and a lens.
Okay,
I
that's
think so.
reasonable.
That's just something to think about. I'm not telling you to switch. I just, you mentioned your back, and I can tell you that the Micro Four Thirds system is so much lighter. And I think, even if it's not Micro Four Thirds, what Sony is doing with the A9, that is definitely a, if I were doing more full-time photojournalism, I would seriously consider that camera as, my photojournalism shooter, because it's such an impressive beast.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you following that camera at all? Do you care at all?
I mean, looked at it a little bit, but again, I mean, it's just I look at initial investment in cost, and like also like what I would have to. I mean, I'm still paying off at least one lens to a person that I bought that from, and I'm like, all right, I can't. The more I look at things, the more I want them, and then I'm like, well, maybe I can justify. I'm like, no. I at least got to pay pay these things off first before I go looking for more.
Yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned 4K, and one thing that I'm curious about, because I mean, I've seen plenty of things shot in 4K, but I've never actually shot anything in 4K. But as far as and this is weird, I'm almost turning this on you, but I'm asking you the question. The interviewer has become the interviewee.
Well, this is a panel show, so we're all talking to each other. No big deal.
As far as rendering that video and getting that, just like from a time perspective and just a software perspective, what if I was going to make that switch, right? What else am I looking at investing as far as computer power goes?
Sure, no, absolutely. So, when I bought the GH4 like almost 3 years ago now, I think it was like October of 14. So I bought it because I was, having my son, we were having our first child, and I just, I heard about the camera. I thought, okay, 4K quality at a consumer level price of under 2,000, like this is it. This is the impetus I need to jump to 4K. And I was just, in my mind, I was thinking it'd be so great to document my entire child's life, all the home movies in 4K. So, from the very beginning, I started shooting 4K of him when he was born. And to, complement the 4K camera, I bought a brand new camera system. So I bought the top of the line MacBook Pro that was available at the time. And now, granted, that cost me about $3,000. So it wasn't a cheap investment. But the way I see it is I'm going to keep this laptop, for a long time. I don't plan on upgrading this laptop that I'm using right now. I've had it for going on, 3 years now, and I don't plan on upgrading it anytime soon. Even though there's new laptops out there, it is such a, it's a future-proofed beast, I would say. It's got the terabyte solid-state hard drive. It's got the high-end RAM and all the chipsets and the speed. Of course, it's starting to show its age a little bit, but it perfectly was able to absorb, play, and edit the 4K footage from my camera. So it does the job I need it to do, and it also complements the GH5 footage, no issues. Like, for instance, and I'll mention this if anybody didn't see, I put out a review of the Signature 13 camera bag, the camera bag that we gave away last month, or that was our giveaway prize for the month of April, which I'm actually going to be giving away tonight. I will be announcing the winner immediately following the show. So if you are watching or listening right now, we have one viewer watching live. So if you, one viewer, want to know who the winner is, head on over to the Facebook page immediately following the show. I'm going to do a live stream where I will be announcing the winner and giving away the Signature 13 camera bag, which, by the way, was an awesome camera bag to use. I give it high praise. I had some comments about certain things, maybe some suggestions for Think Tank to take into in the future. But as far as being a shoulder bag that I'm going to use, I'm absolutely going to be using it, and it's going to be my daily driver for the time being, because it's a really well-designed bag that allows me to hold my whole kit. I thought the previous bag that I reviewed, the Peak Design Everyday Messenger bag, great bag. No issues, no real complaints with that. But I can't hold every single lens in my kit, and I have 5 lenses in my Micro Four Thirds kit, and I have to make a sacrifice. I can't hold all of them, which is frustrating to me because I want everything. I want every single option. And so this bag allows me to take every single thing, almost anything I want in my kit. So I really like that aspect of the bag. And each bag has the pros and cons. But again, I have no issues with the Signature 13. Whoever wins it is going to be extremely happy with it. I believe it's an excellent camera bag. So, you know, if you're going to go into 4K, you're gonna want to go into 4K right, and that's going to be investing in, you know, the high quality hardware of your laptop that's, you know, fully spec'd out. I mean, it's going to be a big investment. You got to suck up that big investment, and hopefully maybe you can pay it off in installments or something like that, so you're not feeling the bite. But, you know, I mean, definitely do your homework, see which ones, you know, because you don't have to go MacBook. You know, I think the Surface, I think there are plenty of PCs that can probably handle the 4K footage. It's just you got to make sure you're spec'd out as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of my other difficulty, is that, you know, I'm running on a it's only about maybe 2 years old, maybe a year and a half on an Asus, but, you know, and I can edit and, you know, 1080 no problem, but when I know that if I was dumping 4K footage to this, I would probably not. It would probably just take a significantly longer amount of time to even get anything to, you know, render, and I could probably see this poor thing crashing a few times here and there. But it is what it is. You know, you do what you can with what you got, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you don't want to mess with video on a computer that can't handle the video. You know, because that's just going to drive you insane. You think it's tough to work with, like maybe a slow operating system, or you have to wait for things to load on a, you know, when you're dealing with photo editing. If you have a system that can't handle the video that's supposed to be able to edit, even if it's 1080p, it's going to drive you insane, because it's like the video isn't going to play smoothly. It's going to take forever to render. The software is going to crash, and it's just going to be an unfun experience. And that's what I had with my last computer. Because when I got the 5D Mark II, I also bought a new computer to complement that. I thought, okay, this is a high spec, you know, $1,200 laptop PC from HP. This will edit the video from Canon, no problem. It was complete trash and made my life a living hell trying to edit just 1080p footage. Yeah. Now, again, this was in 2009, I think, whenever the 5D Mark II came out, and it was just a nightmare. And so after that, I got a MacBook Air, you know, straight, you know, bottom of the line, off the shelf MacBook Air. That thing played the footage from my 5D Mark II flawlessly and beautifully. I was actually able to shoot and edit. I shot something and I edited on like a train ride home, you know, everything, editing, rendering. That thing handled it great. And that's because Macs had, I guess, a chip in them that really helped with rendering video. So that's kind of what I went with the MacBook Pro for the 4K editing. So again, I don't know I haven't done my research on what PCs can handle 4K editing. Maybe they're really great at it. Maybe there's ones that are good at it, but I would recommend Mac. So I'd say get a MacBook, get a fully spec'd out MacBook, get a good 4K camera. Like I said, the Panasonic GH series has worked for me, but there's a bunch of different 4K cameras out there. I will say though, as far as compression goes, the compression on the 4K side for the Panasonic is much better, much cleaner, much smaller than it is on something like the Canon 5D Mark IV. So, you know, I don't know what Nikon is doing for 4K yet. They may, I think the D5 has it, but I'm not really following it closely. And I don't really know what like regular video cameras are doing right now. But again, you know, if you want my take, I say the GH series is doing it. You can get the GH4 now for a lot less. You can get a used one for probably an under $1,000, if not less. So there's an easy way into the 4K shooting sphere. You don't need the latest and greatest camera. And then as far as editing software, I use Premiere. I have a subscription to Premiere Creative Cloud. So, you know, it's pricey at $40 a month. But the way I kind of justify it is it's not the $50 a month that they normally charge. I got it for a special deal on Black Friday. And, you know, if you want to look at the long term, I've been using Photoshop in some form for another pretty much my whole life. And this is the first time I'm paying for it. I'll be honest there. So I figure, you know, I owe Adobe a little bit. Yeah, so fair.
I did get to play, I forgot to mention this earlier. I did get to play with the Sony A7 mirrorless.
A7S?
Yeah. And that was amazing. And it was, it was, I think what I loved about it the most, and it was just really me. It's not, you know, it's a friend of mine's camera. It just happened to be in my house one day. And so I didn't want to take, you know, not my camera and don't want to mess with somebody's stuff. So I just like, well, not going to take it anywhere. I'll just shoot, a little bit of photos and video of the cat. And they came out. The amazing thing was, no matter how low I went with the just ambient light in the room, I was still able to get incredibly beautiful shots without much adjustment. And I thought that was pretty amazing. And that camera, I think, is starting to come down in price as well. But that was one that, like, I've always shot Nikon, but the Sony might win me over at some point. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've waxed long enough on cameras and all that good stuff. So why don't we get on to the topics of this week's show? Be honest with you, I was hoping maybe Zach or Tyler would jump in while we were chit-chatting. But, it is what it is. We got to get on with the show. So let us get on with the show. And the first topic up for bids is the Trump administration and their use of photography. Essentially, this is an article from the Columbia Journalism Review. And it's actually an article that Zach found and posted on our Facebook page. So it's basically saying that, is the Trump administration, successfully or non-successfully using photojournalism to essentially help tell the story of the Trump administration? And, the article's basic conceit is that no, it's not. It's using photos that are very almost inappropriate. Like, for instance, Conway sitting on a couch with her knees, feet on the couch. Or it's just using poor quality photos that aren't well lit, or it's just, it's just not using really high quality work to help tell the story of Trump. It's mostly like group photos and stuff like that. So but I'll throw it to you, Aaron. What do you think of this article, and also what they're saying?
So I've read that piece, and then there was another similar piece that I had read that showed up in another outlet, I think maybe right around the same time. But it's definitely something it is a stark contrast from what we saw during the Obama administration, right? I mean, the photos that you saw coming, from the White House then were incredible. I mean, there's no doubt, like, there was a lot of incredible stuff, but there was so many like moments that were, and sure, things, you're going to grab what you got that, tells the story you want to tell, but they clearly had a story they were trying to tell. And it looked, in some cases, they were trying to tell, something of a personal story, right? There were photos that came out that were, in certain moments where you're like, oh, wow, this is, we're on the inside of, I feel like I'm on the inside of this really powerful moment in the administration. Whereas I think with the Trump administration, as you said, and as the article points out and everything, a lot of these are group shots. They're coming from far back in the room, or it almost seems as if they're trying to keep, the official photographers back away, right? And as far as how and what they're choosing to use, part of me looks at it and says, okay, well, you always see Trump in a group of people. You always see him wearing a suit. You always see, something that's it's very demagogish. Not that that's a word, but you know what I'm getting at. It's this sort of very regal, very stolid, official. Well, I am the president and I am the leader and everyone loves me. Look at this huge group of people around me. It's the biggest group of people you'll ever see. No one's ever had a group of people this big in the Oval Office before. So it almost seems like they're trying to, in some way, for lack of a better term, but other things are confusing. I don't know if you saw the video they put out. I think it was last week or the week before. They threw it up on Twitter, and I swear to God, it was something that, like, an intern must have made in 10 minutes. And it was just a photo slideshow. The photos weren't very good. They weren't very attractive. And the end, it was like this super close up of a really, really bad like cartoon American flag, and then it just zoomed out, and it kept going, and there was this brick of text that was we're the best ever, or whatever. And I'm looking at this going, like, who is the audience here, right? And that's what I still can't figure out, who the audience is supposed to be for what they're trying to show visually. Is it, that your uncle who's still using America Online and, forwarding emails that, you know what I mean? Or that, what do you think? I mean, what kind of audience are they even going for in this?
I mean, I hate to say they're base, but they're base. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, from us in our world, we probably constantly I constantly lament the sort of the work that is out there that is representative as photojournalism sometimes. Not all of it. No. I think there's great photojournalism being done out there, but I lament sometimes when I see really bad stuff out there that's represented as good stuff, or as stuff that is used. For instance, just as simple as like when they had that cell phone photo used in the cover of that newspaper about the Stanley Cup winners and stuff like that. So I think this is appealing to people who don't necessarily take much stock in the quality of real photojournalism, or people who understand and appreciate it. And I think President Obama maybe appreciated it a bit more and understood the power of it, and in addition to also what photos were used. So I think, with him, you saw a lot more of carefully curated professional work from the actual professional photographers, whereas here it's just a hodgepodge of amateur stuff shot by whoever, and something that President Trump might find appealing. So I think it's just coming from a place of not fully understanding photojournalism.
And I think too, I mean, you're talking about, we're talking about the White House. So we are talking about, the highest agency of government, who has access to everything. And, and especially when you're talking about, even candidate Trump and, President Trump and candidate anyone, you have a communications staff, right? And it is their job to portray an image, right? That is what, and the fact that it's so all over the place, and they, instead of deferring to, I mean, they the White House press photographer, has the ability to do all these things, and it's like they're not using the resources they have, instead of just thinking of things last minute, going like, oh right, we got to put something on our Instagram. I don't know, we're at Mar-a-Lago, just grab somebody's cell phone and quick, let's shoot this photo of these really these really important documents that may or may not be classified. Who knows? Let's just get it up and get it out. No big deal, right? And I think it kind of almost shows just how slapdash this administration has been about so many things, where it's just like one constant crisis after another, one gaffe after another, and they can't even get something as simple as, hey, let's get, let's at least show, let's show what we're doing in a professional manner. It's, hey, we, somebody's got a BlackBerry, okay, good, we're fine, we don't need anything else, and I think that sort of speaks to kind of how, at least, some of what we've seen as far as the leadership style or whatever goes in one way, and it's kind of surprising because somebody who is as authoritarian and as desperate for the love and affection of everyone everywhere, you would think that they would try to maybe just humanize them a little bit more, but I'm not really sure how you can I'm not really sure why they haven't done that. And so that's been interesting to see. It's instead like, hey, let's pack everybody we can into the Oval Office. Everybody throw their thumbs up, and okay, move on to the next other, photo that's going to look almost exactly alike, right? And so that's, I don't know, it's strange to me, like you a lot of the criticism. I mean, there's so much criticism, but some of the criticism is like, well, hey, this is here is this. Here's your autocratic billionaire, and you figure the natural counter to that would be, oh, here's this really human photo of him, taken some time, to do whatever, or here's this really, great photo of him and, one of the kids, right? But they're just choosing to not do that, and I don't know why. And it's weird. That's all I got for that. At least on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, it's simplistic photography for perhaps a simplistic base. I hate to be sad and mean about it, but it's not challenging, it's not artistic. I don't know why, Obama's shots were, more artful and tasteful and stuff. I mean, now they have an actual photojournalist working there, who's taking, real photographs. And if you look at their Flickr page, I gotta give the Flickr page a bit more credit. Because at least with some of the stuff, going on here, with like Pence, doing his thing, he's got some more artistic, more moments and stuff like that, more of what you consider like actual photojournalism. And I have to imagine those type of things exist with President Trump, but it just seems that they tend to, things with President Trump tend to, veer more towards the simplistic and easily understood, like, him smiling and showing off a NASA jumpsuit. That's not a challenging photo. Or him smiling and holding up, I don't know, it looks like something from the Easter egg hunt. Every single shot of him is smiling and holding something. Okay, here's one shot of him walking. Okay, that's an iconic style shot. Okay, some press conferences. So I mean, I'd say the Flickr account is a bit more challenging, or at least trying to challenge, but it's still, I've never seen every single shot from Obama's administration, so right. I can't say that there probably aren't a million exact type of photos of Obama, but at least the ones I remember from his administration are very much like, fly on the wall style. And I don't know if we're ever going to get to that point with President Trump. Maybe someday he'll change a bit more and be more I guess accepting of certain types of photos that aren't just groups and happy shots. But
well, you've got you're so I hadn't actually looked at the Flickr page in ages, right? So I'm looking at it here, and I think the closest you're gonna get to fly on the wall is there's a shot of him. It's day 6 on a phone. It looks like it's probably on a plane, like looking out the window, right?
Yeah,
I think that's as close as you're gonna get. You're not gonna get much else of him, because he's very. I mean, right now, he seems he's the again. I mean, he's a very authoritarian. He's a very autocratic type of president, and so a lot of what you're seeing, and I think the one that really has stood out to me was from the Easter egg hunt with them all on the balcony, because that doesn't say. That says the opposite of democracy to me, is the standard balcony shot or whatever, because there are so many places where you've seen that balcony shot which are not this type of government, so to speak. But yeah, I think the closest you're going to get to that sort of fly on the wall thing is maybe him on Air Force One. I think we've seen more with television in some cases, like actual camera crews. There was that. I think it was a couple weeks ago. They were on Air Force One, and they were talking to him at the desk, but in the background, there was a television blaring like at top volume, and it was blaring the Empire Carpets theme, which was weird and awkward. But again, that's not really. That was just sort of like, oh, hey, this is funny. That wasn't really showing much of anything. Right. It wasn't giving, anything. And then, of course, I think we also have to talk about the truck photo, just because, that shot.
The one of him actually like
him in the semi truck, which I always find that sort of thing. And I think on a more local level here, this is sort of like a little pet project of mine, has been, because you stick a billionaire who probably rarely drives a vehicle, let alone has driven.
Well, actually, he in his report, with his interview for Reuters, he mentioned that he loves driving, and he's sad that he can't drive anymore. Now, he may not drive a big rig truck, but
Okay,
probably drives luxury cars. But I'm just saying.
Fair enough, but I mean, this is, it's always it's comical to me at this point when you put somebody who obviously is, lives the furthest life away from driving a truck into a truck and say, oh yeah, this is going to be great. It's very odd to me when that happens, and that our own governor here in Illinois is fond of dressing up in he's also an exceedingly wealthy person, but he's fond of dressing up in regular average person clothes. So you'll see him he's got a motorcycle, so he has a biker vest, which actually has a patch on it that says governor, and every now and again he's got the cowboy hat, and I'm like, this is not who you are, and we know this isn't who you are, right? So why are you even trying to play this sort of dress up costume game? Like, what is the point of that?
Gotta appeal to the base,
I guess, but I mean, people. You would think people would, be able to see right through that pretty quickly. But yeah, I don't know. I think, it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe they'll give. I think one of the other things is, the administration itself is very hostile to the press in general.
What? Why am I just hearing about this now?
I know, it's so. Who would have thought, right? But I think maybe there is who knows, maybe they look at their own press photographer as adversarially as they look at the rest of the press that isn't Fox News or Breitbart. And so maybe that's why you see them kind of pushing him out, or him or her, sorry, whoever, I can't remember the person's name who's actually the current press photographer off the top of my head.
Her name is Craighead.
Okay.
Miss something
Yes.
Craighead.
Okay,
I can't remember
sorry.
her first name. Sorry.
Apologies to folks watching. It's been a long day. So, but I mean, that could be why they're, pushing her out, just solely because, this is a person with a camera, and it's not Sean Hannity. So,
All right, here's what I'll say about that, right? If you are a public figure and you've hired someone to be your photographer, it's not so much that you are rejecting of them being around and taking pictures, just that you're going to be very controlling of every picture that comes out, or, have a very high litmus for what you are allowing them to release. And that's just, that's not their fault. That's just the way it is. And they're not going to publish stuff, just the same as Obama. They didn't publish stuff of him smoking or anything negative. And you're never going to get that from any official account, no matter how sort of, creative or whatnot you want them to be.
Oh, absolutely.
So I wouldn't say that it's adversarial. I think it's just the nature of the beast. They're not photojournalists in the purest sense of the word. They're promotional public relations photographers, really.
Right.
I mean, that's what they become.
That's true. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I'm hopeful that perhaps over time we'll see shots that are more reflective of, the White House and less staged. But I don't know. I have to have hope.
Well, you have to have hope, but also, I mean, we are still dealing with the fact that, people don't understand or believe that this was the biggest inauguration in all of human history ever.
I think there were millions of people, just in the first row.
I heard billions. I mean,
billions.
Period.
I think every person, every man, woman, and child on Earth was watching it live. I believe that's the statistic I was told. So I'm going to believe it. But that's what the official word is from the administration. So
I think that's interesting to me, though, in a way, is that they're still extremely concerned with that, and we'll bring it up from time to time when we're like, man, that's ages ago. There's a lot more that's happened since, and that we should be talking about. But there's still, even I think it was a couple weeks back, there was they were selling the commemorative photo or whatever in their email list, and still, so you're still getting reminders oh, no, you don't understand. Everything in the world is fake news except for whatever reality we've created, right? And I think that's really strange, because you would think at some point you would move on. You would be like, okay, well, there's going to be another opportunity to show visually a large crowd, or show, anything visually. But whenever there's any kind of pushback or counter to the narrative, it's, they really, really don't like that. Anyhow.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's go and move on to our next topic. So I saw this was an interesting news piece when I was looking up photojournalism news. The Himalayan Times reported that the National Forum for Photojournalists organized a procession for to mark National Photojournalism Day. So it's pretty neat that there's this day that exists that is dedicated to people like us in the Himalayas. So it's, you know, obviously if you're over there, it's great. You can participate. And it got me thinking, what would a national or American National Photojournalism Day be like, or National Visual Journalism Day be? How do we celebrate that here? What would we do? How, you know, would there be parades or days off, or, you know, I don't know. I mean, how do we celebrate that here? Aaron, how would we celebrate that? I'm asking you.
I think
you decide. You make the decision for us.
I think that depends. I mean, you know, certainly you would like to, you know, just from somebody who does, you know, both photojournalism and who writes a lot, you know, certainly you would love to see a day that's like, oh, hey, you know, we like you guys or whatever. But the reality in this climate now is you would be just as likely to see, you know, that turn into a huge mob of people shouting fake news, you're evil or whatever, and throwing things at you. Like, I mean, it's, I don't, you know, I don't know what that would look like, just because I think people get, you know, I certainly have never, and I've been doing this work for a long time. I certainly have never, I don't remember a time where folks were this hostile to people in the press. Where, you know, from, you know, a lot of, in a lot of cases, you know, you walk up to somebody with a camera in certain settings or whatever, and people, you know, people are upset at you already. And this is a thing that's happened at, you know, this is a thing that's happened to me multiple times, where, you know, and you just literally, I mean, I remember I was covering a smaller thing that was happening down in the South Side here, and you know, folks were like, well, who are you with? What side are you on? I'm like, I'm just a journalist, man. Well, what side are you on? I'm like, okay, well,
whatever side you want me to be on, man. Yeah, I'm on your side.
Why don't you just tell me why you're here, and we could talk about that? And, you know, so what is that, you know, what does that look like here, as far as, you know, would there be I don't think you're gonna, certainly during this administration, I don't think you're going to see a celebration of journalists, with the exception of people who are willing to essentially, you know, be stenographers for the White House, or, you know, just kind of tote the party line. But it would be certainly cool to see, especially considering there are, you know, this field has exploded over the past, you know, years. I mean, with the, you know, more folks than ever have cameras now than they did before. And are trying to do things professionally. And yeah, it'd be nice to see something like that. But I just don't know. Maybe there'd be like a nice little small ceremony at the museum in DC. That would be, I could see that. I'll put it that way. I could see like a small little ceremony at the museum, or, you know, but I don't think you're going to ever see like a celebration of that, at least anytime soon. And it's kind of a bummer, because, you know, we do this work and we like what we do. But, and sometimes it can be a dangerous job, or at least a long job. But I don't know that we're actually gonna see that kind of celebration, unless, you know, unless something changes from the current direction of people being really, really angry with the media all of the time, because they're not, no matter where you go, no one's doing their job right, and everybody is, you know, on the wrong side of things, right? But what does that look like to you, though?
Well, I first want to say, like, about the hostility towards people with a camera. I haven't necessarily had people overtly hostile towards me, except for one time I was taking pictures while I was on vacation in Jamaica, and I was just shooting, like, you know, just panning across like the sea of people, you know, at a city center, and taking some pictures. And, you know, this guy came up to me and was like very hostile towards me about what I was photographing. And I was like, I can't remember what I said, but, you know, he eventually, you know, went away. But I don't know. I mean, that's a different country. But here, I would say for the most part, I've only recently had an experience where I was shooting actual video for the review of the Peak Design camera bag. And I was shooting it all with my Galaxy S7 Edge. So I was just shooting with a cell phone, but I had it on a tripod mount. So I did get some people curious about that, more so, kind of fascinated that I had a cell phone on a tripod. They'd never seen that before. So, but this one person was, came up to me and asked me what I was doing, like what I was filming. And I was shooting a simple shot where I was using the wall of a building as sort of a backdrop. And I was shooting on the sidewalk in public view. They were just asking me what I was doing. They came up to me kind of hostilely, just kind of like, and then I told them I'm just shooting a review of a camera bag. I'm shooting myself. And they're like, oh, okay. They calmed down very quickly, but they also were agitated very quickly because I was, God forbid, pointing my camera at a building I don't even know. So I don't know. Yeah, like you said, everybody has a camera nowadays, but I haven't felt hostility much recently. I would say, the most hostile stuff is when you're in environments that are mostly geared towards hostility towards people, where it's like a protest situation where, you've got people who are already angry and agitated and, they just see you as a target, especially if you're not on their side. So I felt that before.
I think something interesting from the Himalayan Times article though was that the demand that media houses provide them the required number of cameras. I think that's interesting, right? That because I'm a freelancer, so all of my gear is mine.
Right.
And I've got, and a lot of us, and so many of us who do this work, all of our gear, we pay it, we have to, we have to have our own kits, we have to have our own setups, something breaks, we're fixing it or whatever. So the idea that like you would demand that, no, my employer should be providing me with gear, that I think is fascinating. Because that would be amazing. I don't think I've ever worked in that kind of environment before where somebody's like, no, here, you got a gear issue or whatever. Yeah, we can hook you up. So it's that kind of like the idea that we could demand, resources, right?
Right.
That would be amazing.
Well, are they talking about like freelancers? Are they talking about like people who work for agencies or businesses? Because working for a business, most times you have the gear, it's just outdated most of the times because they buy it once 5 years ago, and then you're stuck with that until they, have their upgrade cycle again, which is usually about 5 years later.
Yep. Oh no,
that.
I've shot for a number of other folks and businesses and things like that. Well, I've done a couple political campaigns. I've shot over the years for different labor groups and things like that. And yeah, I'll come in with, my gear and they're like, oh, wow, you look, wow, we didn't expect that. And I'm like, expect what? And they're like, oh, well, we have this little, and it's always just like, a simple, you're lucky if you can get an SLR. Sometimes it's a point and shoot. And you're just like, oh man, no wonder you can see the stark difference between, photos that professionals give you and then just whoever has the department camera, that kind of thing. But but you look at some of these organizations, you're like, you have the resources, like you should probably look into upgrading and investing in this kind of thing, because at the end of the day you're trying to tell a story, the story of your of your organization or your group or whatever, and you could use a real you could use an actual photographer, an actual somebody doing this kind of work. And it's just like, no, we got a camera. It's fine. We just set it on auto and everything's okay. Which is always fascinating to me. But I think there is something to be said, because so many of us do this kind of work, and we're freelancers. And I think I don't know if the public actually realizes that, like, both for photojournalists and even folks who are running, camera crews and folks who are just out there, reporting on a story or whatever, how many of those folks are not actually employees of, a major news organization? It's like, nah, man, like I think that would be maybe in that same National, Photojournalism Day, we could also have, rope in like a freelancer celebration day, which would be interesting. Just simply because, I was going somewhere with that and I completely lost it. But you get where I'm going with this.
Sure. So we were talking about how do we celebrate Photojournalism Day. Here's how I want it celebrated. So of course, at the morning, you have ceremonies at different schools. So like elementary schools and, middle schools, high schools. You have major parades in all the major cities. So processions, all the major photojournalism celebrities would show up, be the key person in the parade. He had parades with throwing out cameras to people, helping to spread the word about photos, similar like beads in a Mardi Gras parade, but they throwing out, little cameras, like the paper point shoot cameras, get those brings back. You'd have, panels and speeches, a huge march on Washington and a huge speeches on the green, talking about the importance of photojournalism, showcasing work on giant screens. That, of course, would be in DC. You'd have a huge thing in New York City in Times Square. You'd have LA. You'd have films shown about it. Just would be a celebration of the craft. And, where, again, you'd have like panel discussions. They bring me on, of course, as a celebrity in the world of photojournalism to help, get people going and stuff, be like, and now, the host of Around the Lens.
Here's my question though. Who shoots that?
That's the thing though. It'll never be documented.
Yeah, we're all marching on the parade.
Yeah, we're all busy. So that's the rub. It's like it's the biggest celebration of photojournalism in the world ever, and unfortunately, there's no actual evidence of it because nobody documented it. So
it never. Well, I mean, I'm sure we can get one person with a cell phone. That'll be enough. That's all we need, right?
We'll find somebody, we'll give them a point and shoot, and they'll be permitted to shoot the event. So that'll be our archive.
It would be kind of cool to see, because I mean, I'm, as you know, I'm somebody who covers and documents a lot of protests, and so I one of the things that I very much love from them is the sort of like art that you see in the street, more specifically when people build giant effigies or puppets, different types of signage and things.
The counter protesters would burn effigies of cameras,
yes,
or of famous photojournalists.
But I would like to see, a couple of us get together, we make some sort of we make some giant cameras that we can, carry around, but actually make them functional somehow. I figure, if enough of us put our heads together, we can do that sort of thing. But that would be that would be the thing that I would like to see the most, is like in that parade, I would just like to see because if anybody's going to have really good signage, we would be the ones that would have to, right? Hey, I know that guy.
Hello.
There he is, Zach Roberts, joining us from Mayday.
I am finally in my car and driving, and my driving app took me through the back streets of New Jersey, so I couldn't jump on. But yeah.
All right, great. Any thoughts on Photojournalism Day? What do you want from a Photojournalism Day, Zach?
A Photojournalism Day, like as in a Mayday, or what?
No, like a National Photojournalism Day to honor photojournalists. What do you want from that day?
I mean, I think that one thing that Mayday, like people on special days we have like teach-ins and kind of teach activists how to be activists better. I think that it would be interesting to have it in school, like say if this was some magical over it, like if you could have in school, high schools, middle schools, whatever, teach people to appreciate, teach them that like why this is important as a world. I mean, it would be nice to have also a journalism day as well, because clearly they're not doing journalism in school at all. Or at least very rarely, allowing it to have any sort of edge to it.
Yeah.
And that to me is that's the biggest thing. I think that's the only way in general that we're going to be able to, you know, quote unquote, save journalism. Whether it needs to be saved or not, I don't know. That is by having people actually appreciate the importance of it.
Okay.
Like, without that, then it's dead. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I think if, you know, to take a slightly more serious tone, I mean, I think if anything, it would be lovely to see both, you know, an appreciation of journalism and how journalism works and how media works in general taught in schools from a much earlier age than it is. You know, I mean, you can get that kind of thing, you know, you can work for the high school newspaper, you know, take a couple of elective classes, but to actually see that, you know, some sort of media literacy component become part of a core curriculum as early on as, you know, middle school would be amazing.
I think high school's too late. You know, high school's too late for, like, you know, it's like, you know, I've got a 16-year-old sister who is maybe only now just starting to, like, have any interest in reading, unfortunately. And it was just, you know, just like her middle school completely was a waste when it came to, you know, really getting her into reading and making sure that she loves it. And, you know, I mean, I think you need, you know, elementary school, middle school though is like really where, like, they have the intelligence level in people. I mean, it's when I started becoming, you know, wanting to be a journalist, and almost everybody I know had some, like, I want to be something in that field.
Yeah, I think less so maybe a photojournalism or journalism a day, perhaps a day, like you said, a media awareness day, where we are all sort of, you know, it's explicitly told to us, you know, especially for the people who don't get it, like, what is fake news, what is real news, what is real news, what is really fake news, so that people understand that. And then when you have people who call out legitimate news organizations for being fake, or people who point to fake organizations for providing legitimate news, which they're not, then you have sort of raw, like, okay, here's the education piece. You're going to be forced to, at least for a day, acknowledge what's real and what's fake. And then after you have that information, you go on and do what you are going to do with your life. But at least, you know, we've taken the time today to recognize that. Because again, we are in a world where, yeah, you got people who are, you know, saying bad stuff about good stuff, and it's just confusing the narrative for the people who don't pay attention to that sort of thing regularly.
Well, nothing is real anymore, right? I mean, if that's where we're at. We're in this weird esoteric, you know, quandary where literally anything and everything, if you do not agree with it, or you don't like this particular whatever, oh, it's got to be fake. It's like, nah, man, it's or, you know, you could you know, you could write a story, you know, and or you could take a photo, and somebody will be like, what's your source on this? Yo, I was there. Well, I'm not, you know, that's fake. I was literally there, right? that happens a lot, which that is a thing that I mean, you know, maybe it's decades of people not getting any kind of media literacy that has caused that. But I don't know, this generation, I think we're all screwed for a little while.
Well,
as I always say, kids these days, huh?
Well, actually, I'm super there. I actually interviewed a woman, and I'll have to dig up the interview because I don't think I ever published it. I did an interview with a high school teacher who is actually teaching, has an entire, I don't know if it's an entire course or like a series of weeks on fake news, where she gives her kids stories, like 3 out of 4 are real, and they have to figure out which one is the fake story or what is the part that is fake, so that it teaches them, you know, the proper way to consume news, which is, you got to read more than one source. You can't just read the Times. That's a great source on certain info, but you can't, I mean, if you want to read the New York Times on Israel-Palestine, guess what? You're not getting the whole story. Like, you're just not. I mean, so you have to read other sources. I mean, it's just like, you know, during Occupy, you had to read like 3 different news publications just to get actually some idea of what actually happened that night. And even then, it wasn't there. But if those types of classes, and I've heard that people are working on a curriculum to share is if those type of classes go through, you can make this sort of thing fun. I mean, I obviously, I'm really biased. I love investigative journalism. So this is the sort of stuff I just do at 2 o'clock in the morning after a bottle of wine. And I just go, I'm going to go investigate and figure out whether this is a true story or not. Like Snopes.com is like one of my favorite sites to visit. And so I'm hoping that those type of curriculums spread, because I think that that's one of the only ways that we can get these kids these days whose media is consumed, like the way that they consume media, it's freaking impossible to know what's true or not. When you just see or you see 140 characters, or a Facebook post is how you consume your media, or Snapchat, God forbid, which it goes away in 20 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a person who still to this day has refused the Snapchat. Like that is not a thing. The idea that I thought the whole point of, I get it, you're having fun or whatever, but at the same time I'm like, no, the whole point of me like taking this photo or this video is that I want this moment, or I feel that this moment is important, it needs to be preserved, right? Yeah. So I still don't. Plus, there's just too many platforms that you have to like be on, and so I decided to pick one that I'm not going to mess with, and that's it.
I would be happy to educate all the children as soon as they get off my lawn. Once they get off my lawn, I'll happily talk to them about the importance of news and visual journalism. But until then, get off my lawn.
I think though that, it's important to note that we're not just talking about kids, man. We're talking about people who are definitely even older than us. We're talking.
It doesn't matter their age. I want them off my lawn.
Yes, I don't want anyone on my lawn either. But it would be nice if we could figure out a way to educate people who, and I guess these days we see it just on, you see it more on Facebook now, but it used to be, 5-10 years ago, it would be the email you get forwarded that's, FW, this is outrageous, right? Like that has become something that people have taken as, I'm pretty sure that's the kind of thing that that's what Trump reads at night, and that's why he tweets, right?
You're really right. People dump this on the kids so much, but as we can tell, the millennials of voting age didn't vote for the fake news candidate. They just didn't. The senior citizens who've had, well, if they did vote, they have had 60 years of real media, consumption. Back when there was newspapers, and back when you had quote unquote real journalists doing work. Whenever that time period was, that magical time when journalism was great. Journalism great again, but these are the people that are completely duped by it. Of course, these are also not to be. I'm sure we'll get some letters from the AARP on this one now. But these are also the people that get duped by, what's that? Oh God, I'm trying to remember the Law and Order actor that says, just do a reverse mortgage on your home, Oh, and, God, yeah. And so there seems to be a it's almost not even literacy, it's trust. It's like they've stopped trusting the right sources, and now they'll just trust anything. There was if you go to Dismog blog and search my name, I did a story on this about fake news when I was at CPAC, and John Fund, who is a right-wing journalist, works for I think the managing editor or something, editor of some kind at National Review. He ended one of the talks with what was the best way to get people to talk about, start talking about their talking points about how climate change was fake, was by emailing your friends and by sending those forwards out to. They said you have a core. The newspapers may have hundreds of thousands of people, subscribers, but those people don't trust them. If you have 60 people on your email list, those people trust you and they know you, and you need to send it to them. So the other side of the fake news equation here is using that media illiteracy against that own crowd. And I don't know how we fight it unless we just start sending our own damn forwards about, you know, from Snopes or something.
There you go. Let's close up this week's show with our last topic this evening. Let's briefly discuss monitors. So, you know, of course, 4K has become the de facto standard of TVs nowadays. I challenge you to go find a TV that doesn't have 4K in it. They probably still have 1080p TVs that they sell nowadays. I mean, I'm sure it's probably 50-50 in all honesty. But, you know, again, it's the march of technology. I mean, I challenge you to go find a new standard definition television or tube TV. It can't. But anyways,
that's true. But
eventually 4K is going to be the same way. But let's talk about 4K in regards to our work. And so with regard to monitors, you know, 4K, of course, would be great to look at your camera, to look at your photography. You can see all those details. Do either of you have any interest in getting like a 4K monitor for use in your work? Aaron?
Oh, I was going to throw it to Zach first.
All right, Zach?
I mean, eventually I have to. I mean, I'll have to get a new monitor to, you know, and computer to deal with my 4K footage once I start shooting it, because I have a 4K camera. I literally have not used the 4K setting yet though, because I just don't have 128 gig memory cards or 256 to go through the ridiculous amount of information it takes. But, you know, I mean, my thing is that still to this day, I haven't shot anything that needs 4K. Don't want to do that much work on it. It would be nice for the still work, because I do definitely notice the difference between, because I bought a cheap 1080p smart TV to use as my second monitor, just for Final Cut or just for Premiere, just for video editing. And when I try to edit photos on it, if I do for some reason, I can definitely see, you know, it's harder to edit than my Mac monitor on my iMac. But I don't know. I'm in no huge rush. I got to replace a bunch of camera gear before I start dropping like $500 on a monitor.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, as we were talking earlier before you jumped on. I mean, I'm not there yet either. You know, you challenged me to find a monitor that's not 4K. I've got two in my house right now. You know, my television is not 4K either. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, eventually it'll be a thing, but right now, it's not top of the list because I haven't shot anything in 4K either. I mean, I've borrowed gear that will shoot 4K, but I just haven't had a reason to yet. I'm sure if I had one today, it would have, you know, I could have gotten some interesting things at points here and there, but I don't have the rest of the gear that you need to edit that, right, and to make it look good, or to even watch it at the moment. So yeah. It's a matter of just sort of waiting until, you know, once that becomes the standard, I'll come around, but that's still not the standard yet. And I'm in no rush to jump on that bandwagon until I'm of the, you know, I'm old enough now where I get kicked. You know, I have to be drugged to things kicking and screaming, if that makes sense.
See, my thing is though that, you know, I'm trying to remember what it's gone up even, but I mean a minimum of I was talking to my friends over at comicbook.com, and they were saying that 80% of their traffic, I think it was, devices. So why in hell do you need to shoot 4K still? I mean, I get the grading if you're doing a film with the end product, but like, I have some stuff that may end up at documentary films, but even then, they're not shooting 4K. I mean, most people see 100, which don't shoot 4K. Shoot the C300 or something like that, then okay. But like, I don't know. I don't get the huge rush to it, because unless you're shooting at such a high level, then I'll rent the equipment. You know.
So do neither of you care about future proofing your work?
the thing is,
I mean,
that
shooting in 4K is going to future-proof you for when 4K monitors are the thing. Just because they aren't the thing right now, or they aren't as widely adopted. I mean, how long did you shoot standard definition before you moved on to 1080p? What was the impetus to move from standard definition to high definition?
So I've heard that. I think we've actually done this discussion on future-proofing before, but I don't like. I just worked on a documentary film that took footage from 2001 to today, to like several months ago. So it was shot on almost every single video format there was, and it speaks to the time. I mean, it's like, oh well, you don't want to shoot Kodachrome because it's not going to be around always. You don't want to shoot film. I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, 1080p is perfectly fine on even if I've watched 1080p on a 4K television. It looks fucking great. I'm sorry. Sorry. It looks great.
I'm not saying it doesn't look great, but I think it's just, you can shoot at a higher resolution than you can work with or see, but that, gives you the opportunity to work with it later. And I think one of the bigger arguments is the ability to crop in to 4K footage and actually have that flexibility, to zoom in or pan on 4K footage in a 1080p environment.
I get the argument, but like I also don't get why you would do that. Like I don't get the I get.
Well, let's take an interview. Okay, let's say you shoot an interview with somebody, right? You shoot it in 4K. You automatically have, if you're shooting that for a 1080p product, you now have the wide version of that interview, and you have the punched-in version of that interview that you can use for more, changing up the variety of the interview, as opposed to using two cameras.
Well, I mean, first off, is that 90% of people's interview work is appearing on mobile devices or laptops. That's how people are watching things now. So who cares? Then 1080p is fine for that. I've cropped tons of stuff on 1080p for mobile, and especially for mobile, and it would because it's mobile and it looks fine. And also shoot the way you want. I mean, it seems weird to me that you would shoot. I guess it's an option, but it gives you another option, so that's nice, I suppose. But like for me, I'm going to shoot the way that I want the shot to be, and not consider cropping it. I mean, never mind, unless I'm doing documentary work and I have time to do it. I don't have time to deal with 4K footage when I'm doing breaking news stuff. All the footage that I shot today at Mayday, like I'm going home. I'm going to be at home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to be editing that and sending it in. So
right, and that's the thing. It's like if you have a camera or equipment that can't handle it, then yeah, I completely agree. Shoot on the setting that your computer can handle. Don't try and struggle with. I was telling Aaron earlier, you don't struggle with 4K if you don't have a computer that can handle it. Shoot at 1080p, shoot at 720p, shoot at 480p. Shoot whatever setting your computer can handle. But, obviously keep that in mind as something you might want to consider when you do eventually upgrade your computer or whatever to be able to accommodate, 4K, because it is becoming the de facto standard. Even if your media is only going to be primarily seen on a phone or a cell phone, I think you want to have that flexibility, if not, for the future. I mean, I'm kind of like the opposite of you all in that everything I shoot is 4K. All my family photos, all my family video, everything I shoot, with my cameras is 4K, whether it's GoPro or, with my GH4 or 5 or whatever. And I never see nothing. I don't have any single display in my house that can really appreciate the quality of that, image. Even when I shoot on my cell phone is 4K. I shoot, with my cell phone, my Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus, by the way. I shoot that with 4K. And it's only because I want that 4K footage, because when, 10 years or something down the line, I can still, use that on what's going to be the de facto 8K televisions. And it's going to look great, hopefully, on 8K TVs. But yeah, I shoot everything 4K, and I will have it and archive it and edit it, and I can edit on my machine. So that's why I shoot it as well. But I want that so I can have it, even if I'm working on a 1080p output, I have that ability to, zoom in and stuff like that. I was actually looking at a content that someone I work with put together, and he used the zoom capability on 4K footage very, strategically, where it's basically, he's making a 1080p product, but in the footage, he has this zoom out of the thing. It looks like an actual camera zoom, but it's really just a zoom out of the 4K footage using a 1080p window, and it looks great. And that's one of the things you get where you have a little bit more flexibility in post. And again, that may not be something you care about as much for something like run and gun sort of visual journalism, but I think it's, it's something to have. And I would like to get a 4K monitor at some point, whether that's a 4K computer monitor or a 4K TV. But again, it'll be something where, we choose to invest in upgrading probably our living room TV up to 4K. That'll probably be the 4K monitor we get. For right now, I can shoot and edit on 4K, and I don't need to see exactly how great it is. I mean, the monitor I have for my MacBook Pro is a nice high definition monitor. It's not 4K, but it's still a good enough monitor. And, I know that footage and that stuff I'm shooting will look great at some point in the future, whenever I do get to see it. And I think that'll be great. It's almost like when I do have the ability to watch actual 4K footage on whatever device I'm using, it's almost going to be like refreshing. It's like I'll be able to see it with new eyes almost, when I do get to watch it at that time. It'll be great. I don't know if we lost Zach or if Zach muted out, but Aaron, any last thoughts on 4K or 4K monitors?
No, I mean, I think, we'll just, I'm much more in the Zach camp on that. So we'll see, maybe 6 months from now, I'll finally have been drug over and, surrendered and said, okay, I'll do this. But for the moment, we'll see what happens. But so
yeah. I would say there's really no rush right now. I mean, you can shoot on 1080p. I think 1080p is going to be a perfectly fine standard to shoot on, edit on, and export on for, at least the next 5 years, if not more.
Yeah.
I don't think most people are, like you said, most people are watching stuff on their mobile device. They're not going to see the detail. But I think it's like when you want to start perhaps positioning or pitching your stuff to perhaps networks, to perhaps, the higher end stuff, they're going to start to want 4K, more and more. And it's going to be, and I think it's going to be tough to not shoot in 4K because ultimately, just like all the TVs went to 1080p, all the TVs are going to 4K, all the cameras are going to have that 4K shooting capability. So it's really going to be something where you're going to have to ignore the capability that's in your camera. I mean, like I said, my cell phone shoots 4K footage. I don't have to shoot at 4K, but it's there. And the cameras I buy shoot at 4K. You're going to eventually upgrade your camera gear, Aaron, I hope. Yeah. And that camera gear is probably going to have 4K built into it just because it's going to be in everything. And then you're going to have to make that decision. Do you choose not to shoot on something that you have? It's like when video became something that was integrated into, DSLRs. Yeah. You had to choose not to shoot video, right. But it's there, it's that capability. So, I think it's just going to happen, organically over time. And I would be very surprised if, we're not all shooting in 4K in 5 years.
Yeah, fair. That's totally fair.
But by then, of course, 8K will be out. Okay. And I'll have an 8K camera, and you all be shooting 4K, and we'll having this exact same argument. I'm like, guys, you got to get with the times with 8K. You can crop in on that. You can zoom, and they'll be like, listen, Dave, 4K is fine, okay?
Exactly.
I output to the monitors and the mobile devices, and no one cares, and 4K is just fine for me. And I'll be like, no, man, you're living in the past. Every single camera is going to have 8K in it. Then you're going to have to decide, do you shoot 4K or 8K? Get with the times.
And by then we'll be doing, by the time then that I pick up that 8K, you'll be doing like hologram photography. Like, no, man, you got this is perfect for the, for the holodeck that we all have because we're going to live in, that's the world we're going to be living in at some point,
much,
right? That's what I can hope for.
My guess is 360 16K is what I'll be shooting at while you're all shooting 8K. So I'll be like, get with the times, man. 16K is where it's at. Yep, anyways, all right. That'll be Around the Lens episode 1000. We'll be talking about that. So tune right in for that episode. All right. Well, we've lost Zach. Sorry, Zach, you couldn't be on us for the end here, but I guess we got to close out the show. Aaron, where can people find more about you?
Look me up at aaroncynic.net. My Twitter is twitter.com/aaroncynic. And then also you could find me pretty regularly at chicagoist.com.
All right. And you can find Zach at zdroberts.com and me at djmphoto.com. And you can find both of us at aroundthelens.com. We're posting all kinds of stuff there on the website. And like I said, and the Facebook page, very active Facebook page. So again, we'll be announcing shortly here the winner of the Signature 13 camera bag. So stay tuned to our Facebook page, probably about 10 p.m. Eastern. I will announce the winner and what our next contest will be. Is going to be pretty sweet. So make sure to tune in, find out what we're doing, or again, tomorrow or Facebook page tomorrow, and I'll let you know as well. So, all right. Well, that's it for our show. Aaron, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to be with us, to talk about visual journalism. And of course, Zach, thank you for joining us from your remote location in somewhere in New Jersey. So that's about it for our show this week. This has been Around the Lens, episode 72. I have been David J. Murphy, your host for this episode, and we are out.